Some of you are wasting too much energy trying to make people understand your worth. You keep repeating yourself, defending yourself, trying to convince folks who already made up their minds about you. Let me tell you something, people who truly respect you don't need an explanation. And people who disrespect you aren't going to listen to one. So why keep talking? Every time you try to explain yourself to people who mistreat you, you're giving them power. You're giving them more chances to manipulate you, to twist your words, to make you feel like you're the problem. The truth is they knew what they were doing when they disrespected you. They just didn't expect you to call them out on it, or worse, to go silent and walk away. When someone disrespects you, it isn't a mistake. It's a decision. And when you keep explaining, you're permitting them to do it again. You're showing them that your boundaries are flexible. They don't need another explanation from you. They need to feel what life is like without you. That's the real lesson. You think words will change their mind. No, what changes people is loss. When you go silent, when you remove yourself from the situation, they start to realize that they messed up. They start to question why you're no longer arguing, no longer fighting for the relationship present. And that silence is louder than any explanation ever could be. See, people expect you to fight for their approval. They expect you to defend yourself, to break down, to get emotional. That's how they keep control. But when you stop explaining and just remove yourself, now they have to sit with what they did. Now they have to wonder why you're not responding. That's when the regret starts creeping in. Your time and energy are too valuable to be spent on people who don't appreciate them. You don't owe anybody a justification for your standards, your boundaries, or your self-worth. Either they see your value or they don't. And if they don't, your silence will remind them of what they lost. Stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop giving people the blueprint on how to mistreat you. Let them deal with the silence. Let them feel the emptiness they created. Because the second you stop talking, they start thinking, and trust me, that thought process will eat them alive. A lot of while think the best way to handle disrespect is to fire back, to say something that cuts deep, to prove you're not the one to mess with. But let me tell you something, the most powerful response ain't a comeback, it's silence. Silence makes people sit with their behavior, and that's something they can't escape from. See, when you argue, giving them a stage, you're letting them control your emotions, pull you into a battle you never needed to fight. And for what? To prove a point to someone who already chose to disrespect you. That's wasted energy. Some folks don't deserve the luxury of your reaction. Silence, though, silence is haunting. Silence is what makes people question themselves at night. Silence is what keeps them looking at their phone, wondering why you haven't responded. When you remove your energy, when you stop feeding into the nonsense, they start to realize that their words and actions didn't just hurt you, they cost them access to you. People crave control. They want to get inside your head. They want to make you react. That's why they push your buttons, test your patience, and try to get under your skin. But when you refuse to engage, when you just walk away without giving them the satisfaction, that's when they realize they lost. And losing someone's attention, someone's presence, that's a pain they weren't ready for. The thing about silence is it forces people to think. It forces them to confront their behavior. They start asking themselves, did I go too far? Did I push them away? And that's when reality hits them. Because now they can't take back what they said. They can't undo the disrespect. They have to sit with it. Silence is a mirror. It shows people the reflection of their actions. When you stop talking, stop arguing, stop explaining, now they got to deal with themselves. And that's a battle most people don't want to fight. They'd rather argue with you than be alone with their guilt. Don't waste your breath. Don't try to get the last word. The most powerful thing you can do after disrespect is go quiet. Let them wonder. Let them overthink. Let them realize on their own that they just lost something valuable. That's a lesson they'll never forget. The moment someone disrespects you, they're looking for a reaction. They want you to yell, to break down, to defend yourself. That reaction gives them power. That reaction feeds their ego. But when you don't give them that reaction, when you just walk away and go silent, now they're uncomfortable. Now they're the ones feeling lost. See, some folks get a thrill out of pushing your buttons. They love knowing they can get under your skin. That's why they throw little insults, make slick comments, and treat you like you're beneath them. It's not about you, it's about control. And the only way to take back control is by refusing to give them the energy they're looking for. Silence is disappointing to people who want attention. They want to see you upset. They want to know they had an impact. But when you stay cool, when you refuse to play the game, they start feeling the weight of their actions. They start wondering why they couldn't shake you. And that's when they realize they never had control in the first place. A lot of times the reason people mistreat you is because they assume you need them. They think you're desperate for their approval, their friendship, their love. But when you respond with silence, you're showing them that you don't need their validation. You don't need their attention. And that realization will hit them harder than any argument ever could. Disrespect is about power. When someone treats you poorly, they're testing to see how much they can get away with. But when you go silent, you're telling them you don't get another chance. That silence is a reminder that you're not someone to be played with. That silence is the moment they realize they have gone too far. The biggest mistake people make is thinking that walking away is weak. No, walking away is strength. Walking away means you know your worth. Walking away means you refuse to lower yourself to their level. And when you do that, you flip the script. Now they're the ones left with questions, regret, and silence. So disappoint them. Don't argue. Don't defend yourself. Don't explain. Just go silent. Because once they realize they lost your energy, your kindness, your presence, that's when the real pain sets in. That's when they start feeling the consequences of their actions. Have you ever noticed how the people who talk the most trash, the ones always trying to put others down, are usually the weakest ones in the room? The ones who are truly strong don't have to prove it. They don't have to belittle others or seek validation through disrespect. Real power is quiet. Insecurity is loud. The reason some people disrespect you isn't because they're strong, it's because they're scared. Scared that you might be better than them. Scared that you won't tolerate their nonsense. Scared that deep down, they're not as important as they pretend to be. So what do? They run their mouths. They attack. They try to make you feel small so they can feel big. But here's where you flip the script, don't react. Let them talk. Let them throw their little insults. Let them try to make you feel less than. Because the moment you respond, the moment you engage, you're playing their game. You're validating their nonsense. And that's exactly what they want. Silence is a test most people can't handle. When you don't react, when you just sit back and let their words fall flat, you force them to face the truth they're not as powerful as they think. That's why silence drives them crazy. That's why they get louder and more desperate. Because deep down, they need you to respond. They need that validation. Weak people crave attention. That's why they provoke you. That's why they disrespect you. They're hoping you'll stoop to their level, that you'll get emotional, that you'll give them control. But when you don't, when you just keep moving forward, unbothered, now they're once stuck with their emptiness. The loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. The real ones don't need to prove anything. They move in silence, they carry themselves with confidence, and they let their actions do the talking. So when someone tries to get a rise out of you, remember this, your silence isn't a weakness. It's a power move. And that power is something they can't handle. So let them talk, let them act tough, let them disrespect you, and then walk away. Because nothing haunts a weak person more than realizing they never had control over you in the first place. A lot of people confuse walking away with giving up. They think if you don't fight back, if you don't argue, you're weak. But let me tell you something, walking away isn't a weakness. It's a strategy. It's choosing your battles. It's knowing that some fights aren't worth your time or energy. When someone disrespects you, they want you to react. They want to pull you into a pointless argument. They want you to get emotional, to defend yourself, to prove something. But why? What are you proving? That you're willing to waste your breath on someone who doesn't even respect you. That's not power. That's playing a game. The real power move is to recognize the situation for what it is and remove yourself from it. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. You don't have to beg for respect. Either they see it or they don't. And if they don't, your silence and absence will teach them a lesson they won't forget. See, walking away does something most people don't expect. It forces reflection. When you engage in an argument, people are too busy defending themselves to think about what they did. But when you go silent, when you leave them standing there with no response, now they have to sit with it. Now they have to face the consequences of their actions. People who disrespect you aren't expecting silence. They're expecting a fight. They're expecting you to beg to try and make things right. But when you just leave, when do you stop responding? That's when the regret kicks in. That's when they realize they pushed too far. Walking away doesn't mean you are lost. It means you won the moment you refused to waste another second of life on people who don't deserve it. You didn't lose anything they did. They lost your kindness, your energy, your presence. And trust me, that loss will hurt more than any argument ever could. A lot of why all don't realize how powerful your absence. People get so used to having access to you that they take it for granted. They assume you'll always be there, always picking up the phone, always responding. But the moment you remove yourself, the moment you go quiet, that's when they start to feel it. See, when you're constantly available and constantly engaging, people don't value it. They assume they can disrespect you, mistreat you, and you'll still be there. But when you go silent, when you remove your presence, suddenly they realize how much they relied on your energy. And that realization stings. People don't appreciate what's always there. They only understand its value once it's gone. Your presence is a gift. And when someone disrespects you, they're showing you they don't deserve it. The best way to teach them that lesson, take it away. Let them feel the emptiness they created. It's easy to ignore words. People dismiss apologies. They twist arguments. They convince themselves they were right. But silence. Silence forces them to sit with their thoughts. Silence makes them replay every conversation, every moment. Silence is what keeps them up at night, wondering if they made a mistake. And let me tell you something to people who once acted like they didn't care. The ones who brushed you off, disrespected you, treated you like an afterthought. They'll care once you're gone. They'll care once they realize you're no longer an option. That's when they'll start to regret it. That's when they'll start to miss you. But by the time they figure it out, it'll be too late, because while they're stuck in the past, replaying the moments they took for granted, you're already moving forward. You're already becoming stronger, wiser, better. And that's when they'll realize they lost something they can't get back. Don't waste time arguing. Don't beg for respect. Just remove yourself, because sometimes the only way people truly understand your value is when they feel what life is like without you. People who disrespect you aren't just doing it for fun. They're doing it to get a reaction. They want you mad. They want you emotional. They want to control how you feel. And the moment you react, they win. Because now they got you right where they wanted you engaged in their negativity. See, disrespect is a game to them. They poke, they prod, they throw shade just to see how you'll respond. And when you explode, when you start arguing, when you go back and forth trying to prove yourself, that's when they sit back and smile. Because now they got you wasting your energy. Now you're investing in their nonsense. But what happens when you don't react? What happens when you just sit back, shake your head, and walk away? Now they don't know what to do. Now they're the ones frustrated, confused, wondering why you ain't peeing in their mess. And that's when the game stops being fun for them. People who thrive on disrespect need your reaction to survive. Your anger, your frustration, your need to prove yourself, it feeds them. It validates them. But the moment you go silent, the moment you stop responding, it's like cutting off their oxygen. They start to panic. They start to question themselves. Your silence forces them to deal with their actions. They can't twist your words. They can't manipulate the conversation. They can't shift the blame onto you because you're not engaging. You're letting them sit in the mess they created. And trust me, nothing makes people more uncomfortable than facing themselves. When someone disrespects you, don't argue. Don't defend yourself. Don't give them the reaction they're hoping for. Just let your silence speak for itself, because nothing is more powerful than refusing to play their game. Let me tell you something, disrespect only works when you allow it. When you sit there and tolerate it, when you keep showing up for people who don't value you, you're telling them it's okay to treat you like that. And that's why they keep doing it. People only do to you what you let them. If you keep entertaining their nonsense, if you keep giving second chances, if you keep explaining yourself to people who already know they're wrong, you're wasting your breath. Some folks don't need an explanation. They need consequences. The biggest consequence, removing yourself. Make it clear that you don't deal with disrespect, that your time is valuable, that your energy is a privilege to be played with. And when you do that, people learn real quick that they can't treat you any kind of way. See, some people will test you. They'll push boundaries just to see how far they can go. But when they realize you ain't the one, that you don't argue, you don't beg, you don't tolerate nonsense, that's when they start respecting you. Not because you demanded it, but because they now know you won't stick around for anything less. But here's the catch: you got to be consistent. You can't say you won't tolerate disrespect and then go right back to people who mistreat you. You can't talk about self-worth and then entertain people who keep showing you they don't care. Your actions have to match your words. Stop making excuses for people who don't value you. Stop explaining yourself to people who know what they're doing. And stop giving energy to folks who wouldn't even notice if you stop responding. Because at the end of the day, the only way to teach people how to treat you is by showing them what happens when they don't. Do you ever notice how people don't realize what they have until it's gone? They take you for granted when you're always available, always responding, always showing up. But the moment you go silent, the moment you stop giving them access to you, that's when they start to feel it. At first, they won't care. They'll act like it doesn't matter, like your absence doesn't affect them. But as time passes, as the silence gets louder, they'll start wondering where you went. They'll start questioning if they made a mistake. And that's when the regret kicks in. See, people get used to the things they don't have to work for. They assume you'll always be there, always forgiving, always coming back. But when you finally cut them off, when you stop responding, stop answering, stop being available, now they're faced with the reality of what they lost. They'll check their phone expecting a message that never comes. They'll bouquet conversations in their head, wondering if they should have handled things differently. And that's when they'll realize you were never the problem. But by the time they realize it, you'll already be gone. You'll already be moving forward, doing better, living your life without them. And that's when they'll feel the real weight of their mistakes. Not when you argued, not when you explained yourself, but when they no longer have access to you. Don't waste your time proving your worth to people who don't appreciate it. Just go silent. Just walk away. Because the moment they can't reach you is the moment they'll finally understand what they lost. When you go silent, when you walk away from disrespect, it's not just about removing yourself, it's about growing. It's about becoming a better version of yourself, one that no longer entertains people who don't deserve you. And let me tell you something, nothing hurts people more than watching you grow without them. See, they expected you to fall apart. They expected you to sit around waiting for them, hoping for an apology, begging for their attention. But when they see you thriving, when do they see you happy, successful, unbothered? That's when they start to feel the regret. Because now they realize they didn't break you. Now they see that their disrespect didn't define you, it only made you stronger. And that's when they start wishing they had treated you differently. Your silence isn't just about making them miss you. It's about showing them that you were never dependent on them in the first place. That your life doesn't revolve around their approval. That you're perfectly fine without their validation. And the best part, you won't have to say a word. Your growth, your success, and your happiness will speak for itself. It'll remind them of everything they lost, everything they took for granted. And by the time they realize it, you'll be too far ahead for them to catch up. Focus on yourself. Let your growth be the response, because while they're stuck in regret, you'll be living proof that walking away was the best decision you ever made. When you go silent after being disrespected, the people who mistreated you will start to wonder what happened. They'll sit there confused, questioning why you're acting different. But let's be real, you didn't change. You just finally stopped tolerating their nonsense. People get so used to mistreating you and getting away with it that the moment you switch up, they don't know how to handle it. They'll start making up stories, telling themselves that you're the problem, that you switched up, that you are being distant for no reason, but deep down they know exactly why. See, they never expected you to realize your worth. They never thought you'd be strong enough to walk away. They were counting on you sticking around, continuing to tolerate their disrespect. But when you go silent, when you stop engaging, when you remove yourself completely, that's when reality hits them. At first, they'll play it cool, act like they don't care, act like your absence doesn't affect them. But give it time. The silence will start getting to them. They'll start checking their phone, wondering why you haven't reached out. They'll start reminiscing about all the times you were there, all the times they took you for granted. And that's when regret starts creeping in. Now they're left with nothing but their thoughts. No more arguing, no more back and forth, no more justifying their actions. Just silence. Silence is powerful because it forces people to truth the truth they were trying to avoid. So don't feel guilty for walking away. Don't feel bad for cutting them off. If they truly valued you, they would have treated you better when they had the chance. But they didn't. And now your silence is reminding them of what they lost. When you stop talking, stop explaining, stop reacting, you give people the one thing they can't stand, your absence. Because here's the truth, your presence was a gift and they never realized it until it was gone. They were used to having access to you. Used to disrespect you and still have you around. Used to treat you like an option while you treated them like a priority. But now they don't get that luxury anymore, and that is what eats them up inside. People who disrespect you don't expect you to walk away. They expect you to stay, to keep giving chances, to keep explaining yourself. But when you finally say enough and go silent, that's when the real punishment begins. Because now they don't get the satisfaction of knowing how you feel. They don't get to manipulate the conversation. They don't get to twist your words. Silence is powerful because it leaves them wondering. It makes them question if they messed up. It forces them to deal with their behavior instead of blaming you. And the more time passes, the more they realize just how much they lost. They'll try to act like they don't care. They'll post things online, try to make you jealous and act like they're unbothered. But deep down, your silence is killing them because now they don't have control over you. Now, they can't get a reaction out of you. Now, they're the ones left feeling powerless. So let them sit with it. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Because when you walk away from disrespect, you're not just protecting yourself, you're teaching them a lesson they'll never forget. And by the time they realize it, you'll be so far ahead that going back won't even be an option. If someone disrespects you, don't argue, don't beg, don't try to make them understand. Just go silent. That silence. It'll echo louder than any words ever could. It'll remind them that they lost something valuable. And by the time they realize it, you'll be too busy winning to care.